Look! Look, the dynamic duo! I got
Hey, welcome guys to the Dynamic Duo. I'm Franz.
I'm Kevin. Welcome to the new Batcave in Avengers Tower, everybody.
All right, so Kevin, yesterday was the big reveal, obviously, and how did you? What did you think?
Well, I have to admit, I liked it for the most part. I really did. I've actually watched it twice since yesterday.
Oh my God!
Okay, because I watched it first thing in the morning, like I told you. And after you and I texted one another last night, I put it on again and watched it again. Okay.
Oh, you're kidding!
I really,
oh my God!
really liked
So you
it.
must have because I texted you like at midnight.
I've been up for quite a while because I turned around first thing this morning and watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like I said, I really, really liked it. There were two things on a primary level that I would have done different. Actually, three things. One of them is incredibly small, but only three. I would have only changed three things about the entire movie.
Go.
One, I thought some of the scenes could have been edited to be a little shorter, just a little bit. Some of the scenes, even though the movie is fantastic, some of them ran a little long, and from an editor's point of view, or to even take the editing part of it out, just watching it, some of it just ran longer than it should have. The other thing that I would have changed, and I don't know how you feel about this, it'll be interesting to hear your take on it. I really was not all that happy with the soundtrack. The soundtrack to me didn't fit. And I'll be honest with you, one of the things that bugs the devil out of me, because they did the same thing with the first film, and I was really hoping they were going to update it and do something different, is there's no big heroic theme for Justice League. And what I mean by that is, if you go all the way back to the days of John Williams and Superman, when you hear that heroic fanfare in the beginning, you know Soupy's coming. Danny Elfman did the same thing with Batman. Okay, you knew when Batman was getting ready to do something. The folks that were responsible for the music from the Avengers, and I believe it was James Horner, but don't hold me to it, you knew something was going on when you heard that theme. Unfortunately, Justice League doesn't have that for me. There's no overarching or overarching theme that says, okay, the heroes are here. And the songs that they chose to kind of set the mood for most of what was going on, I didn't like those songs. They were too melancholy and too down in the dumps. And that includes using the Hallelujah version at the end credits, because to me that didn't fit. Especially after the way that movie ended, because it ended pretty much on a high note outside of the epilogue that's before the credits start. And I think they missed the mark by not really emphasizing that the hero team is there and everything is going to be good now, at least for a while. That's my take on it. The third thing that really bugged me, I don't want to say out loud because it could be considered a spoiler. I'll tell you.
Oh, interesting.
After the show. Let's just say that
Interesting.
it deals with a green character.
I understand. I
Okay.
understand. I think by now that news is probably out, but I understand it. For the use of spoiler, let's talk about it later at the end of the show, and we'll give people the opportunity to click off
Right.
without we'll
It
do a
was just
spoiler.
the level of makeup. I thought they did the makeup wrong.
All right.
I preferred his look from Supergirl.
Understood. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that at the end. First of all, let me let me start off by saying I love you in the sense that I love your objectivity and your consistency. Before I give you my opinion, I listen. I see the tea leaves, man. I read what's happening, and there's a lot of groupthink going on. I was there when Zack Snyder was hated. I am a Zack Snyder fan. I love Zack Snyder, and I love Zack Snyder through the hate period when everybody was just hating on him. And I never thought that was fair. And I was there when his movies with his visions were being panned. Because let's not forget, Superman, Batman versus Superman, all those are Zack Snyder movies and his visions, and those were panned. So for me to be watching the internet and seeing it be, oh, Zack Snyder's the greatest thing since sliced bread, to me, that's disingenuous, and this groupthink mentality, we're just riding the wave. And this movie, interestingly enough, just as it was unfair and untrue that they hated the original Justice League prior to it coming out, and they were criticizing it prior to it coming out, which told me that it wasn't a genuine, it was a groupthink hatred. It was a Marvel versus DC, whatever the beef was going on. Just as that was true, this was happening in this movie as well. We decided that we were going to love this movie no matter what, as a groupthink thinking. Okay, so in speaking to you, and we kept this fresh so that I didn't talk to you beforehand. I appreciate the fact that you're able to maintain your objectivity, which is what this show is all about. Now, having said that, I love the Zack Snyder movie. Having said that, I love, and by the way, sometimes groupthink is right.
Right.
Or I should say, sometimes I agree with groupthink. I shouldn't say it's right because sometimes I agree with groupthink as well. But I'm agreeing from an objective point of view, not just because I'm going along to go along type of thing. Now, before I give you my opinion and tell you what I think, let me address some of the issues that you brought up. The first thing that you brought up were the scenes. You said the scenes were cut a little bit long. You know what? I agree with you. I think it's an astute observation. And I think some of the scenes may have been a little bit too long. In fact, I think some of the scenes were not necessary at all. I think we could have made the movie a little bit shorter by eliminating a lot of the scenes that were superfluous and they didn't contribute to the movie. I agree with that technically. Soundtrack, I agree and disagree. I definitely see your point, and I agree in a lot of ways. First, I agree that that the music choice it kind of it kind of took me out a little bit. Some of the songs that were going along, it which is not supposed to happen. It's supposed to just blend in, and I wasn't crazy about the song choices. So I agree with you that, and that's another great observation on your part. Having said that, I liked some of the other things that we're doing with the soundtrack, which is very subtly when Superman was in play, the Superman theme would come on. When Wonder Woman was in play, her theme would come on, and
yes.
and I went, and that it added, just like the other one kind of took me out. This added it because I'm sort of in a Superman world type of thing, and so I agree and I disagree. I appreciate some of the things they did, but I recognize some of the things that they did weren't exactly stellar.
Mm-hmm.
The very last thing, we'll talk about that in a non-spoiler. I don't think it's fair, though, if I may say. I don't think it's, listen, we can do that with any movie. we can do that. We can critique any movie and to a very fine-tuned extent. For me, when I watch the movie, I look at the overall experience, and I look at whether or not the good outweighs the bad. Sometimes the bad could ruin a good movie. I agree with you. Sometimes the bad could absolutely ruin a good movie. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that this movie delivered to me what the superhero genre is about.
Oh, yes, sir.
It delivered it to me in such a powerful and complete way. There were times when I was getting goosebumps. There were times when I was almost, I hate to admit it, but almost like I wanted to tear up, because it was delivering to me on such a purely level. Listen, as I've said many times on the show, I'm a superhero fan. I'm a guy who grew up reading comic books and loving comic books, loving superheroes, loving the characters of the superheroes. And that genre is a very specific genre. It's a very specific genre. And what I watched, the 4 hours that I watched with Zack Snyder yesterday, delivered that format to me, Kevin, in the most beautiful and epic way I could imagine. It totally geekgasmed me. It totally turned me on. So while you're absolutely right, technically there are some little minor details, man, the overall presentation was just so powerful and so awesome and so exciting to me that I give it a thumbs up, way, way, way up.
As I was saying earlier, I apologize to you and the rest of the world for wondering whether or not they were going to be able to pull this off.
No,
as
you shouldn't
I said
apologize.
a few moments ago,
yeah,
I've watched it twice.
Yeah.
The movie has me mesmerized. One of the only other things that I really, 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 really wanted, and he didn't do it, was when they were looking through the boom tube or the time portal at Darkseid. Nobody said anything.
Oh.
I wanted somebody to respond.
No, I gotta disagree with you there, man. I gotta disagree with you. I think not saying anything is more powerful than saying something. I think not saying anything, in my opinion, but I don't mean to interrupt you, but go on.
It was just, like I said, the movie has blown me away. And if you remember from a couple of weeks ago, I had said to you that I was really hoping that at least for this movie, that they were going to leave Soupy in that black suit, at least for a while. And I loved how they set up the symbolism of the suit. And what I mean by that is, when he decided, okay, I'm coming, and there's no holding back, I kind of took the black outfit as, although he still stood for truth, justice, and the American way, it was sort of like, okay, and pardon my French, but I'm putting on my ass kicking clothes. And I love the fact that they did it the way that they did, right down to the fact of when he did show up, he simply stood there and was like, I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
I almost fell on the floor.
Oh my God. That was awesome.
As I said to you last night, and I've said to you probably once or twice over the last couple of weeks, what I don't understand is, and maybe they're waiting to see what the public response is first, but the early production take on this is that Warner Brothers does not want a sequel to Justice League.
Let's talk about that in a few minutes, if you don't mind. Let's talk about, because I want to continue to talk about the movie itself, and let's talk about that in a few minutes.
Not
because
a problem.
You brought up some really awesome points. we talked about the fact that some of the scenes were unnecessary and a little bit long. Let's also give credit to some of the scenes really fleshed out the story. Really, listen, I love the first movie. I like it a lot. I had no problem with it. This is vastly better. It's vastly superior, but it's not because it's better in a sense of it's better. It's because it's 4 hours versus 2 hours, and you could do a lot more in 4 hours than you could do in 2 hours. Right. And so I like the first movie. I had no problem with the first movie, contrary to most people. But that 4 hours, some of the scenes, one of the things that it did, which was not good in the first movie, and I recognize that, the explanations, there were some plot holes, there were some mistakes. So for example, it opens with Batman defeating one of the parademons and the parademon exploding and showing the 4 signs. That never really made any sense.
Right.
Yeah. So the explanation, the fleshing out that Zack Snyder did in his movie was much more thorough, much more cohesive, and really kind of explained the story really, really, really well, in my opinion. So that was a huge plus. The characters were fleshed out much better in a much more interesting and powerful way, which brought, when they were coming together, made it that much more powerful. And as you said, Soupy being Soupy, Superman, listen, I love Superman, and Superman has been misrepresented a lot. And Superman is extremely powerful. He's the most powerful superhero on the planet. And I absolutely love when he's depicted as such, as opposed to the guy who's always getting knocked down, always getting his ass handed to him. I was not a fan of Superman because of that, until I realized, oh my God, wait, Superman is not that because he's weak or because he's a punk. Superman is that way because he is so powerful that he's almost like a grown-up playing with a bunch of, toddlers. So he has to be extra careful not to hurt them. And so I came to admire Superman. And I love when Superman is depicted as strong. And Zack Snyder delivered that, as you said, when he comes in, and we don't want to give too many spoilers, but when he comes in as Superman. Like, he comes in like, as Superman. This is not, we're in a different league there, baby.
Yes. And I have to tell you, it's interesting that you started with Superman, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I have to tell you, and this must mean that the Jedi mind trick or something is going on, or Jerry Siegel or Jim Shooter or Jim Schuster, they must be telepathically hitting you and I. Because my favorite scenes outside of the action stuff in the entire film were between Lois and Clark.
Yeah.
I loved every one of those. Yeah. They hit 100% bullseyes with every shot that Amy Adams and Henry Cavill were in together. They nailed every last one of them.
Yes. Beautifully so. Beautifully so. Snyder must be a Superman fan because he really gets the character and portrays the character. And when he goes from the confused, I just woke up, to slowly coming back to who he is, that route, that juxtaposition of just the farmer boy, I'm just a small boy from Kansas. That was from a Wonder Woman comic book, Superman, Wonder Woman. Anyway, that juxtaposition of just that good guy, I'm in love with my wife, to the super, that to me is Superman. And you're absolutely right. And Amy Adams, I was watching the movie yesterday, and acting is just something that is so fascinating to me. I've said this many, many times. It's such a fascinating thing to me because, like, an actor, and it's acting and directing and production, it's the whole thing. But a scene could be done with a person just literally having a conversation. Like when she's talking to Martha Kent, like, it's a small scene, but there's so much going on there that it's fascinating to me how these things can be delivered in such a fine-tuned way. And an actor's job is to make you not notice that they're acting. So it seems like it's an easy job, but dude, it's the hardest thing in the world. It is the hardest thing in the world, and they delivered it finely and beautifully, in my opinion.
You know how we've talked about some of my issues relating to Lois Lane? It's Amy Adams' fault. And what I mean by fault is, for the contemporary age, she plays Lois so perfectly, in my opinion, that she eclipses, and this isn't fair to all the other actresses that have played the character, and I realize that, and I'm admitting that. But for me, she eclipses everybody else that has stood in front of a camera to try to play that part.
Interesting.
And I think that's why, well, as a matter of fact, I know that's why I have an issue with the young lady that's playing Lois on Superman and Lois for the CW, although I realize that Amy Adams is more of a movie actress than television. And whether or not people want to admit that, there is a delivery difference for actors. That's why in some cases, people who do TV don't do well in big screen presentations, and vice versa, because there is a difference with the way that this stuff is set up, and people don't always transfer well. But like I said, it's Amy Adams' fault. I love what she does as Lois Lane.
When you say her fault, what it sounds like?
Because I've become attached to her as the character.
Oh, I see.
If it were left to me, at least for this day and age, I don't want to see anybody else play the. I really don't.
In other words, she's ruined Lois Lane for any other actress for you.
Yeah,
it's her fault. You know, yeah. I as I've told you before, I happen to think that the young lady in Superman and Lois is doing a fantastic job. I really, really believe that. I think she's a very, very good actress. And I think in many ways, that subtlety that I was talking about, I think that show has it. I really think so. I defer to you. I defer to you with respect to Superman and Lois, because you know the character better than I do. As I said, I'm humble in my fandom. And I came into being a fan of Superman very, very late. Very, very late. So you know Superman in a way that I don't know Superman. You know Lois in a way that I don't know Lois. I can pretend, but you know, I'd be disingenuous. You know, it's like the way that I know Spider-Man and I know Mary Jane and I know Gwen Stacy. I know those characters intimately, and so as an outside fan, I'm a fan, but as an outside, you know, a lay fan, as I see Lois Lane, my Lois Lane, believe it or not, is defined. My first real introduction to the character is from the Superman movies, you know, and as a fan, you know that that's not accurate. As a non-fan, I don't know that. So that's defined the character to me. And so when I see that and I see the Superman and Lois, she emulates that character to me in a very powerful way. So I like her, and I like her performance. And
I can see it.
As I was watching the show, I was thinking of you, and I wanted to make this point. One of the issues that you had with the character was that she's a little bit too old, but she has to be old because she has teenage sons, so she has to be a little bit older. And also, you also talked about the fact that she seems a little bit too old for him. Well, that's actually a brilliant thing if you think about it, because she will age faster than Superman will age. And so those are the things I wanted to bring up. But you know, the movie to me is just, you know, let's talk about Darkseid. Let's talk about Darkseid. What did you think about Darkseid in the presentation of Darkseid?
I loved it. It was exactly what I wanted from the character. I just did. The whole business with his voice, the way that the actors handled his mannerisms when he was moving, even because a couple of those shots were semi-animated, and even with him being animated to a small degree, it didn't take away from the character.
Yeah.
I simply loved how they depicted him. No, there wasn't anything wrong with it.
Yeah. 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 And by the way, that's where I might disagree with you slightly. Well, respectfully disagree. It's a choice, and I think I would have liked it either way, and I think I could imagine how it could work the other way too. But I like that they didn't say anything to each other in the boom tube. I like that because it's like it was a nonverbal challenge, man. It was a, don't you know who I am and what I can do? Mm-hmm. And it's Superman saying, bro, don't even thinking about bringing it over here. I mean, literally, it was the fact that they did what you mentioned before, which we're not going to say because we haven't gotten to the spoiler part. But the fact that Wonder Woman sent the send-off as well as she did, it was a, don't even think about coming over here. But on the other side, Darkseid is looking at him like, don't you know? Like, don't you know who I am? Like, don't you know what I could do to you? And so that that tension to me, I think, and I would trust you to come up with the proper dialogue, but I can imagine a dialogue that would have made that better. And I can imagine, and I think the dialogues that I can think of would ruin it. So maybe you have a better dialogue than I do, but I just love that. I just love that I'm just like, I loved it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it.
It was fantastic. And I have to admit to you, and what I want to know from the other side of it, not just Darkseid, but what I want to know is when they were doing their reshoots and their pickups for the movie itself, do you know whether or not because I haven't been able to find out yet, but I will. Do you know whether or not they had Eisenberg come back and do a fresh scene? Or do you know whether or not that was simply an extension of what they had shot with him before? Because I loved what he did at the very end of it. Luther, to me, I finally liked what Eisenberg did. And because of what we see in the Snyder Cut, I want to see more of him as Luther, but I specifically want that approach. Don't give me the woohoo woohoo, I'm half crazy. I like what they did.
Brilliant, my friend. Absolutely brilliant what you just said, because that's exactly how I felt about it. It's a fascinating thing. And I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think so, because it seemed very similar. The scene, I have to go back and look at the original scene again. But for whatever reason, he was much more Luther than in Batman versus Superman, which he wasn't Luther in Batman versus Superman. He was not Luther in Batman versus Superman. But in that brief little scene, he was Lex Luthor. And I could absolutely see it. And I agree with you. The one, I'm not going to say it's a criticism, it's a preference. It scares me. I don't like it. I wish they kept it out of the movie. I don't like the dream sequence situation. It scares me. I don't like, first of all, I don't like the trope of Superman becoming the bad guy. I don't like that. Keep my character pure. Don't mess with him. Don't make him into a bad guy. Please, just, it's a trope. It's whatever. Right. I think it's cheap and easy. And I think I don't want the, that version of the, ultimately what it would turn out to be is some sort of alternate universe dream sequence, because the Earth would not be destroyed to that extent. I don't want these. I don't like that's why one of the reasons why, and I didn't want to bring this up because I don't want to make the comparison between Endgame, but I don't like the revisionist. Oh, it was a dream. Everything goes back to normal. The character dies, or the Earth gets destroyed, or whatever the dramatic thing that's supposed to pull me into the story, and then say, oh, never mind, it's the Dallas, from the TV show Dallas Syndrome. Oh, it was all a dream. To me, that doesn't work. And so I don't like where they're going with it. I could see that it would be an interesting story. I could see that it could be a powerful story. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there with it. But I thought that little piece was well delivered and intriguing and fascinating. But just leave it. Just right now, we've got a linear story. Darkseid wants to invade the Earth. He has the anti-life equation. Now he really wants to come and get the Earth. He's coming. That's a story. I don't need anything else. Like, what else do I need besides that? And so that's the only sort of thing I have about the movie.
And I have to tell you, I liked him from before, and I'm admitting that. I may be one of the only people outside of yourself that really liked Ben Affleck's Batman. He nails Batsy in that movie. He just does. I like what they did. A couple of the original scenes that they had with him in the original cut, I almost wish they had put back.
Yeah.
Because two of my favorites ended up hitting the cutting room floor. I love the original exchange between him and Diana when he realizes that he's hurt himself and he's trying to change his clothes, and she resets his shoulder and everything. I love that scene. And
yeah,
I wanted that one back. The other one, even though it's kind of a comical scene for 10 seconds, but I wanted that left in the movie and they took it out, was when he was on the ground after Superman had kind of hit him a little bit, and he turned around and said, yeah, something is definitely bleeding. This doesn't feel right. I wanted that left in the movie. And they removed, it's like, no, put that back. Put that back.
It's interesting. I'm sorry, go ahead. I thought
no, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, it's interesting to me, the choices of what was kept and what was added. And and the question, I have the similar question that you have. How much more did Zack Snyder shoot for this? Because it seems so much more, it seems so much more that it was like, it's a different movie in many, many ways. And you're absolutely right. I always loved Ben Affleck's Batman, but I loved it even more. Like, there was, I don't know if it's because the character was fleshed out, or because we were seeing it through different lenses, but I love the Wonder Woman as Wonder Woman more.
Yes.
Every character was more to me. It was like more to me. Superman was more, Batman was more, better delivered. Flash was better delivered. The humor in this movie was so much better, in my opinion, because it worked within the context of the movie rather than trying to be too funny. It made sense. He wasn't ridiculous. He was just a funny guy. Little things, and yet he added so much to it that the question would be, to what extent did he change the original vision, having time, because he had time to rethink it, right? And see what he could do better. To what extent did he change the original vision? To what extent did he have to film more stuff to add to this? And to what extent did he say a big F you to Joss Whedon? Because I think this movie was a personal note to Joss Whedon, because apparently Joss Whedon was trashing the movie. I think he was like, you know what, Whedon, bro, you can't compete here, type of thing. I really do.
It shut the door on Whedon is what it did. Because he was supposed to handle the Batgirl movie, and they've told him no. He's been removed from the project completely.
Wow. Wow.
Now, part of it
Wow.
is
So
because of
this
some of the
brings up
stuff
the question.
with Ray Fisher that's popped up. The rest of it is just because of what Snyder ended up doing with this final version of Justice League. They're like, Josh, thanks for playing, but no. Take your sandbox and go home.
Which is terrible. I have to say it's terrible because I don't know how this thing happens. These waves occur. Joss Whedon comes from the golden boy who delivered the Avengers. Everybody loved Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon couldn't do no wrong. And somehow, some way, he becomes the bad guy, which I don't know that I necessarily jump on the bandwagon for. Now, the reports that he was a jerk, that's unacceptable. I agree with that. But I also understand that he was under pressure to deliver a product that he came in halfway in, and so on and so forth. And so, I don't hate Joss Whedon by any stretch of the imagination, and I certainly don't hate his delivery. Again, it's a 2 versus 4 hour comparison. But this brings us to the conversation that you wanted to have earlier, which is, so you were telling me, so two things. Bring back the Snyderverse, baby. As far as I'm concerned, bring back the Snyderverse. That's the next campaign. And you were telling me that WB doesn't want to do that?
Their next big project for Warner Brothers, cinema-wise, is Flashpoint. They've already said that unless it becomes an absolute, they do not want to do a Justice League 2. Which I don't understand. I do
first of all,
not understand it.
First of all, there is no way you don't get a Justice League 2. The way that movie ended and the way that, the world is responding to this movie, there is no way you don't deliver that. If you don't, you're just literally throwing money away. Like, you're just like giving it away like for free. That's the height of stupidity to me. And doing Flashpoint doesn't contradict doing the Justice League. They could just be two different movies.
Right.
You know what I mean?
To me, even though I don't want to say that someone else needs to take over the visionary end of what someone else has done, but James Gunn and all the other people that are responsible or going to be responsible for some of their upcoming projects, they need to seriously sit down and watch Zack's cut, because he fixed everything that was really wrong with the first film, including the fact, if you remember, one of the conversations that you and I have had both on camera and off was that I said to you, I didn't like the fact that they had them going to this literally abandoned town in Russia where there only seemed to be one family of he completely fixed that.
Yeah.
And the way he fixed it, it worked for me.
Yeah.
And I do know that James Gunn and Margot Robbie and other people are really considering another Harley Quinn movie. And of course, the Suicide Squad, the new one, is coming to HBO Max, I think, by late April, early May. That's their next biggie, because I think I told you, nothing that they had on board for going into theaters is going to theaters. Their entire catalog for the year, meaning from the end of 2020 all the way into 2022, everything that they had on board is going to HBO Max. There will be no theatrical releases for them for the coming year.
Wow.
Now, Marvel is still debating that because, like I said, part of the problem with them is they don't want to do what the folks at Warner Brothers and HBO were doing, which is the day that the thing gets streamed, you can still go to the theater. They don't want to do that. But it's going to be interesting because I couldn't agree with you more if I was sitting next to you right now. I don't see how they don't do a sequel to that movie. I just don't.
It's harder to have imagined the Snyder Cut version than it is to imagine a sequel. The sequel is the next logical step. The Snyder Cut was an impossibility.
Yes.
And somehow the Snyder Cut happened. And so I'm hard pressed to believe that the next logical step would not happen. Right now, Zack Snyder is ruling the world. And it's fascinating, again, how that happens. It's just fascinating to you go. Joss Whedon goes from Golden Boy to Public Enemy #1, and Zack Snyder goes from Public Enemy #1 to Golden Boy.
All I can say is people are fickle.
People are fickle, and again, it's groupthink. I disagree with it. I don't see the merit as to why that is. I don't think Zack Snyder ever deserved to be Public Enemy #1. I really don't. I've always been a fan, and I stuck to my guns. And I don't think Josh Whedon needs to be Public Enemy #1 now. You know, the investigation is still up in the air as to what happened in the movie, and we don't know the other side per se. You know, we can reserve judgment, but I don't know why he would be Public Enemy #1. And I give him credit for not starting this whole thing. I give that to Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr.
Right.
But his work on the Avengers launched that whole group thing, you know, team up, and he launched that. And if he had failed on that movie, you know, who knows where we would be right now? We may not have had a Justice League movie right now. So I don't think that he deserves to be hated. But you know, groupthink, people go along with whatever the internet wave is. You know what I mean?
Part of where this comes from, and you brought up an interesting point by doing the comparative thing of Public Enemy #1 versus Golden Boy. I think the major portion of why this is happening and why it does happen, and it's not just the superhero genre, it's a lot of stuff, is that unfortunately the public wants a lot of people from Hollywood, and especially in certain genres, to be so pristine and so perfect that if something happens, whether it's a groupthink mentality or something else, that if they deliver a product, whether it's a TV show or a movie, where it's not exactly 100%, people flip out.
Yeah, you're right.
They just can't handle. Well, I saw the latest Batman or Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever, and it wasn't exactly what I thought it should be. The other half or the other portion of that is that we develop, and this is something that you had said a long time ago, and I bowed to you on so many levels, and it's because we develop a predetermined thing in our own heads. It's not fair to most of these creators for these things in Hollywood, whether it's television or movies, but that's where it happens. Because of the predetermination that we create, if it's anything different, a lot of fans can't handle it.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And sadly, it's happening. And we don't want to turn the show into a political discussion or we go outside the realm of superheroes. But what you just said exists in the world in general. We essentially choose sides, and whatever side we're on, we go with it. It can do no wrong, or it can, if we were against it, it can do no good. And we lose our ability to be objective. We lose our ability to see the nuances and the grays in between. And seeing the grays in between doesn't mean you can't come to a conclusion. It really doesn't. You can conclude this is a bad movie. You can conclude this is a bad job, or this is wrong. You can conclude that, but you can conclude that with the complexity of it. The example that I give is if someone kills another person, right? Well, the black and white way of looking at it is, oh, this person is a murderer. He's wrong. He deserves to be punished. We hate him. But the gray nuance of it is, okay, why did he kill this person? What's going on in his life that drove him to kill that person? And we may find out that maybe the person he killed abused him. Maybe, he was whatever. We may find out complexities that not excuses the action, but helps us understand the action. And so the conclusion is still, you're wrong for committing murder. But it can be done with a sense of empathy and understanding. And say, oh, I get what caused that. And there, but for the grace of God, go I. Like, maybe I would have done worse, a sense of empathy. And we've lost that in society. And so, we would choose sides. Either Zack Snyder is good or he's bad. And I don't know who's making these decisions. Like, I'd like to know where does it start? Where does it start that Joss Whedon is a bad guy? Like, I'd like to know. And where does it start that whatever thing you want to pick? And why hasn't Taika Waititi been vilified? I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. For Thor Ragnarok. I had to drop that. Listen, I love Taika Waititi. Stay in your lane, bro. You're not a superhero guy. I'm sorry, you ruined my Thor. I gotta drop. I gotta drop my Ragnarok hatred. Every chance I get, man.
Let me ask you a question, because I know you've got movies and what have you. And I've never asked you this before, but I am now.
Good.
I know you're somewhat of a completist. Do you even own Thor Ragnarok, or you refuse?
I refuse. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? No, man.
See, you sound like me with the Green Hornet. I refuse to own that movie.
There you go. There you go.
See, I have problems with Thor Ragnarok, but in order to complete the set, I do have it.
Oh,
it's not one of those that I've watched a lot, but I have it. It's sort of like the Eric Bana version of the Hulk. Okay.
Yeah. That's another.
I didn't like that
one.
all that much. There's very little to like in the Eric Bana version, but because I'm a completist in that sense, I own the movie. But we've got to do your Thor Ragnarok show soon. If we don't, you're gonna have a coronary.
I'm gonna have a coronary. Now, before we end, but I'm gonna make it the new thing that I gotta find a way to drop my hatred for Thor Ragnarok in every show.
Oh no! You don't. Please, we can have Thor pop up in the corner. Oh man. I can put a little Thor in the corner and just have him raise Mjolnir every show. Like, don't forget about me.
Beating Taika Waititi down. Beating him down. Before we go, let's just do spoiler alert. We're going to discuss the movie with spoilers, and so if you haven't seen it yet, you go ahead and click off. But what did you want to say that includes the spoilers?
I thought it was really neat that they included the Martian Manhunter.
Yeah.
And I like what they did with him. I just didn't like the makeup job. To me, the makeup job was overdone. And I know that John Jones would be frightening to some just because he's green. But it almost made him look like he was a monster from somewhere instead of the John Jones that I have gotten used to through Supergirl. And to me, that's the way they should have made him look.
Yeah. I agree with you yet again. I bow to your genius yet again. But there's a thing that I'd like you to keep in mind with respect to that. First of all, I agree with you. First of all, I was excited to see John Jones, and I was excited to John. I said John Johns. It's John, by the way. John, which is cool. But anyway, yeah, I've been watching Young Justice, and I love that show, by the way. Like, by my God, that show is so good. Like, we'll have to do a show on that show because it's just the production value is so great. But anyway, so I love to see John come in, and I love to see him coming in as a superhero with the cape and with the the relative design. Right. Having said that, I agree with you. I felt the exact same way, that it was overdone. Having said that, we have to remember that John presents himself in three different ways. There's the alien Martian incarnation. Mm-hmm. There's the friendlier humanoid Martian interpretation, and then when he becomes human. And so the hope could be that he will tone down all that stuff. I hate when they do that. Like, why do that? Just present them in a much beautiful, simpler way. Right. So hopefully they can fix that, and he could make himself a little bit more appealing, which is why he does that look that more humanoid green look that he does. But my overall feeling is, dude, I was excited to see him. One last thing I'll add is that I didn't like the fact that he was masquerading as, again, this is spoiler section, as Martha Kent. The reason is because that scene was so good to me. I wanted it to be Martha Kent. Yes. And also I didn't see John Johns being able to be that good of an actor that he's, it's one thing to pretend to be someone else, but it's another thing to be that good of an actor where you're putting off emotions and things like that. So I wish they had kept it Martha and introduced John in the end, but it's not anything that I'm gonna rile up about. And I said that was the last thing, but one more thing. Let me ask you this question. And it's a fascinating thing to me. But while I accept your criticism of the over-the-top, not quite Martian Manhunter representation, don't you find the same, if not worse, guilt in some of the other movies, including some of the Marvel movies that are depicting some of our characters? Oh, yes. And does that bother you as much? Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, you better believe it. Exactly. It's what it comes down to is at different points, and it's not a group thing per se, but at different points, there's different levels of exception. I understand. Okay. For instance, although I love what they've done with Batman and Ben Affleck, I'm still not happy with a lot of the depictions of his overall costume. It's the costume to me, even though I know it's got tinges of gray in it, the outfit is almost too much black to me. I know that's nitpicking from somebody else's point of view, maybe, but it's just mine. It's Batman to me has always been in some form of either black and gray or black, gray, and yellow. And to kind of throw him in the all black, no. Again, I bow to your observation skills. It's interesting. I think the difference is connection and love. You're DC and I'm Marvel. So here's how I feel about the Batman, the Batfleck Batman. To me, it's the best Batman ever depicted. It's the closest to the source material ever depicted. And I absolutely love it. Now, having said that, do I think it's perfect? And do I disagree with your points? I don't. I would like to see a little bit, sometimes there's too much texture in the costume. Yes. We don't need that much texture in it. And a greater contrast between the gray and the black. Sometimes you don't even notice the black Bat's
Right.
emblem. Having said that, I go back to it's the best Bat superhero, movie depiction of the Bat suit that I've ever seen, and I do love it. It's a suit that I love that I agree can be refined. Now, having said that, let's go back to my Marvel section. Captain America. Captain America and Joss Whedon Avengers was a disaster to me. It was an absolute disaster to me. I hate that costume. Zippers everywhere. That made it made no sense. Like it just didn't make any sense, and it didn't look like Captain America. It didn't present Captain America well. Right. I hated that costume. So if I'm going to compare delivery between Batman, Justice League, Ben Affleck's Batman costume presentation to Captain America's presentation, I give the Batman 10 times more, and I wish I could get my Captain America. Captain America, the First Avenger, I hate that movie because of the costume and because of the delivery of it. Like the first half I love. It's really, really well done. The superhero half I hate. It's not, they ran away from the superhero genre. Right. They ran away from the core of it, and that costume didn't work in my opinion. The best Captain America costume comes from Age of Ultron, as well as Civil War. That's closer. I wish it was a little bit closer, more still. The same way. What you're saying. Yeah, the same way I wish Batman could be a little bit closer. But even then, I give the edge to the Batman costume. But it's not just Captain America. There's a lot of from Hawkeye to Black Widow to, I mean, you name it. There's a lot of characters that, dude, just get a little bit closer. Just give me the character. Stop running away from it. Stop running away from it. Give me the thing. Give me them as close to them as you can. And, yeah. And yeah.
It's the big thing that I'm waiting for with the Fantastic Four movie, even if the film is fantastic. Part of what I want to see, and I'm not saying that I'll dump on the film if it's not there. I'll give the film the opportunity to make me lose it, but I want the Ben Grimm thing brow.
Absolutely, baby. Bring on the brow. Now the fans know their power. Let's demand the brow.
Give me the brow.
And give me the brow. Give me the, my God, Kevin, I must have lost my mind demanding the brow. I was so upset when and they refused to give the brow. I was driving the movement, give the thing the brow. Give me the brow. Give me Galactus. Let's not be afraid anymore to give me Galactus. You can give me Thanos. You can give me Darkseid. Give me Galactus, man. Give me Galactus. Give me the antennas. Give me Kirby. Give me Galactus and deliver that to me. We have to end, but I cannot end without we'll do a show about it, but I wanted to get your take on the Joker, and particularly given the comparison between Jared Leto's Joker to, did you see the link that I sent you, Batman Dying is Easy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming because I've talked to Aaron, the guy who makes those. Okay. He and I have corresponded online. I'm trying to get him to agree to an interview. Yes. For us. Yes. It's been back and forth. I just haven't said anything to you. Gotcha. Because he hasn't committed to an interview yet. Understood. But yeah, I have almost every one of their little superhero presentations. Yeah. Because one of them, have you ever seen Patient J?
Oh, I don't. I don't
recall. You gotta see that one.
Send me that link. Patient J. It's on YouTube as well.
It is, but let me send you. I'm just gonna send you the one that I have because it's the complete one. A lot of the YouTubers that have it posted, they've unfortunately done something that's wrong. And what I mean by wrong is a lot of people that have grabbed a lot of Aaron's movies have turned around and put their own logos and all that kind of stuff in the corners, or they've re-edited them and recut them. And I hate that.
I see.
I don't think it's fair to the
I agree.
creators that other people decide to do
I
that.
agree.
But the Patient J version I have is the complete and the original. And I mean, even if I have to send it to you via email or in some sense, I'm gonna have to.
It's a superhero. It's about
Yeah, it's by the same people who did Dying is Easy. They've been doing these for more than 10 years.
By the way,
Okay.
they must have a pretty good budget because the actor playing Bullock, that's a well-known actor. That's the
Yeah,
guy.
they had several well-known actors in the thing.
Yeah,
And uh uh Chris Daughtry is playing um Hugo Strange.
interesting. Yeah,
They
yeah,
they've got money.
yeah.
But yeah, they've been doing these for more than 10 years.
I've seen obviously some of their other work, but the thing that I wanted to ask you about is, do you agree with me that while okay, so do you agree with me that that representation of Joker is the Joker, and we haven't gotten that from any other movies? Like that's the Joker. Now he's beat up and he's in Arkham and he's whatever, but you could imagine that guy out of Arkham with a suit and clean tie and being the Joker. And to me, that's the Joker. Do you agree with that?
I agree 500%. I truly have been part of a movement to get Hollywood to pay attention to these people because they're making these things better than Hollywood.
Yeah.
Okay?
By the way, I don't know if you remember, you and I met, and that was the discussion. Now things have changed a lot, and comic book movies are much better now. This was around the time of the X-Men and Fantastic Four.
Right.
And we were like, what the hell is Hollywood doing? Because as you were involved in those things, the fan movies were better. They were more interesting. They were more accurate. They were more fun. Things have changed, but I agree with you. Yeah, some of the fans get it.
And by the way, did you realize that Aaron, I think his last name is pronounced Sharkey or Shoki.
Okay.
He's the Joker himself.
That's
him. And he's had other people play Batman, but the current guy he has, oh my goodness, they need to hire him.
They do. In my opinion, it's an interesting thing. And I don't know if this is fair to say, and he's not going to see this, so I'm going to be as careful as I can be. I love his depiction of the Joker better than any other depiction of the Joker that I've seen.
I do too.
As an actor, he needs a little bit more. Like the delivery is like perfect, and then not. It kind of alternates back. He's not quite there, as in my opinion, as an actor.
Yeah.
And it's, again, that distinction is fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me, because he's not doing anything wrong. He's not. Right. And yet the delivery is not 100%. And I can see the flaw. I can see where it's wrong. Whereas when you're watching an actor, whether you agree with the depiction of the Joker or not, but when Heath Ledger is the Joker, he's full on, and the delivery is perfect. Like it's flawless. Same thing with Joaquin Phoenix delivering the Joker. So that guy, as good of an actor as he is to do what he did, he's not quite on that level. And if he were to smooth it out, then we would get a perfect delivery of the Joker.
Well, see, I think with the work of a more engaged director, it can be pulled out of him.
Agreed 1,000%. Agreed 1,000%. And in fact, I would lay the blame more so on the director than on him, because I think you're absolutely right. Genius statement. I think the right director, because we forget they take 100 takes. Give it to me the way I want it, and that guy is good enough to deliver it the way the director's vision sees it. I agree with you 1,000%.
The greatest line in Dying is Easy comes when he turns to Batsy and says, "I'm dying," and the actor playing Batman looks back at him and doesn't flinch and basically says, "Are you?" It's just the quality and the work that they put into those amateur productions is just, it's unbelievable.
It really is. And by the way, I was talking to my daughter about this. That's why it's inexcusable that Batwoman would exist, because how do you not put everything you have into the show that you were responsible for? By the way, the news is that it's been canceled. We'll talk about that some other time.
I know. I told you.
Yeah, that was inevitable. It was inevitable.
They're not happy.
But I don't understand how you're a director and you're given an assignment to do a TV show. That's a huge deal. Not everybody gets that. And you deliver a mediocre product when clearly, you know what I would have done as a director? First thing I would reach out to those guys who made Batman Is Dying. I'd say, come on my team and be an advisor. Correct me and help me if I don't know it. You know, because there was a brilliance in that short little snippet. It was beautifully delivered in the sense that it's a very complex story, because Batman set it up that the Joker isn't really dying. It's really deep and brilliant, and a lot of things, a lot of subtext was going on. And I said earlier that I would blame the director for the Joker's delivery. I say that in context of knowing that these guys don't have the budget to do 100 takes, so they have to they have to do it fairly quickly. And so, you know, kudos to those guys. Great delivery, great job all the way around.
I'll send you the other stuff though, but it's one of my favorite things, and I'll say this, and if you want to close, we can close.
Okay.
I absolutely loved how he handled the makeup for Mr. Freeze. That was perfect.
I'm trying to remember.
When Batman was walking through Arkham, and you realize that he was passing the different characters.
Yeah.
When he passed by Mr. Freeze's cell.
Yeah.
And Freeze was sitting there. I believe he was doing one of his little ice sculptures. And the blue tint that they had given the actor's skin was perfect.
Yeah.
It was just perfect.
I wonder why.
I wish they had gotten somebody else to do the Riddler. I thought the guy playing the Riddler was a little too skinny for me, but that's just me.
Anyway, my friend, listen, I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I hope you'll like, and I hope you'll subscribe, and I hope you'll join us next time. And Excelsior, as they say in the biz.
See you soon, folks.
All right, brother.
This looks like a job for Superman.
Hey, look! It's Spider-Man!
The dynamic duo return next week. Don't listen.